And please welcome to the stage Jeremy Foster, SVP and GM of Cisco Networking, Compute at Cisco. And I'd also like to welcome Adrian Criddle, VP Sales and Marketing and GM of EMEA. EMEA Marketing at Intel.
Hey, morning.
How are you guys this morning? Welcome.
Doing well.
Very good.
Now, since we last spoke, what trends are Intel and Cisco seeing in EMEA, and how are customers' needs and concerns evolving? Adrian, start with you.
Yeah, to start off with, that's a pretty big question, really. I mean, Europe, Middle East and Africa, we're going through quite a phenomenal kind of change in the marketplace. A lot of external factors, geopolitical situations. It does have a bit of an impact. I think the recent IMF data showed that GDP will increase a little bit over the coming quarters. I think we're pretty optimistic that the back half of the year will be a little bit more positive, but we are seeing a little bit negative territory kind of currently. I think in terms of trends, and Jeremy will add to this, but I think security, end-to-end security, is still the biggest concern for most execs that operate in the IT industry, but also at the CXO level. Nobody wants to be in the press for a security breach, and we're seeing it a lot, time and time again. So I think a big opportunity to modernize, revolutionize, and digitize everything for the future. So that's kind of my view currently.
Nice. And Jeremy, can you share your perspective on IT's top-of-mind concerns and how Cisco is addressing that?
Yeah, I think fits right in line with the other question. I mean, customers are really after one big theme, and that theme's all around simplicity, right, and operations. And so the top of mind concerns are security, sustainability, and being able to make sure that you can run your operations without having any type of downtime or challenges. And it's been really awesome to work with Intel over the last several years on the UCS platform, because that's what we're trying to do, is make a really simple operational experience. And we'll probably talk more about sustainability later, but drive a lot of solutions into the market that have some competitive advantages to the things that have been there before. And it's been a really good experience.
Great. And Adrian, can you tell us a little bit about the recent announcements that have helped Intel and Cisco achieve a new milestone in your partnership?
Yeah, I'm really excited. A couple of weeks ago, we launched our 4th generation of scalable Xeon processors. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But our partnership with Cisco goes back multiple generations, multiple years. And actually, back in November, we were officially announced as a Cisco partner. Sounds crazy, because we've been a strategic supplier for years, but actually becoming a strategic partner for Cisco on the co-sell side to help bring those solutions to market is really incredible. So the 4th gen Xeon technology that we launched a couple of weeks ago, it obviously features heavily in the Cisco UCS X-Series, the modular platform that Jeremy is an expert in. But I suppose there's 3 things around the Xeon technology that we probably want to bring to bear. First, power performance. This is the first data center CPU that's going to have 12 accelerators. And what that means is that you can offload certain parts of workloads within the CPU to basically accelerate and increase performance and efficiency, which is what we all want. Secondly, we had a technology in the 3rd generation called software guard extensions. If you want to know more about that, then please go and talk to the people on Intel booth. But we've also come up with domain trust execution as well, which is another technology. Again, go and talk to the experts on the Intel Cisco booth. And this obviously brings a new level of security right down at the hardware level, where it's very much protected in conjunction with Cisco. And then lastly, I would say that what we tried to do is we actually manufacture the silicon for these wafers in Arizona and Israel. And these are our 2 latest generation factories where we're looking at the sustainability factor across the 4 modules, which I'll talk a little bit later. And this really brings, not only from a manufacturing point of view what Intel's doing, it's also bringing the ability that we actually put telemetry and analytics within the CPU. So Cisco's Intersite manager can also take advantage of how to load balance what the CPU is doing at the silicon level, and then that goes into the manageability of what Cisco does in their UCX and their X-Series products. So I think the combination works very well.
And Jeremy, can we dive a little deeper there? What does this mean for customers?
I mean, it's really a great example of the technology that we roll out together. Things like X-Series, for example. We work on co-development, we bring that out, and there's the sheet metal aspects of it, right? So how do we make sure that we build the latest and greatest Intel Xeon 4? How do we get flex GPUs into our X fabric so that all the building blocks that a customer possibly could want, because that's how they customize what the needs of their application are with the underlying hardware, so they can drive the lowest total cost of ownership within their application deployments, whether that's on the data center or at a disaster recovery site, et cetera. And then more importantly, how do you manage that? That's where the Intersight pieces come in. And then how do we take some of these things like accelerators that can really drive the cost down of running certain workloads like databases and integrate all that into the Intersight management so that that experience is really simple. And then over time, how do you maintain and manage that environment to avoid issues and concerns and do the things that you have to do to maintain the environment around, firmware updates and all the kind of stuff that can slow people down when they're on-prem versus maybe operating in the cloud, and make that experience much more equal across those two different types of areas.
Nice. And Jeremy, let's stay with you. Tell us more about UCS X-Series.
X-Series. So X-Series is the most, we talk about the challenges, the most sustainable server platform out there. Obviously, we're using the latest and greatest Intel Xeon, and we'll be rolling that out here in about 8 weeks, 9 weeks, something along those lines. And that is going to be a big lift. But what it really brings in terms of the business value for customers is a huge opportunity to drive much more consolidation than what we've seen in many years. And when you look at what a lot of customers that are out there, if you can take a server that's 2-3 generations old, and you're talking about replacing 3 servers with 1 server and really collapsing the physical infrastructure that's there. And it's a huge leap forward in that regard from a processing perspective. From an overall systems perspective, X-Series is about being able to do anything you want to do without compromise in a modular platform. And you say, well, what's a blade platform, a modular platform? Everybody's wanting to use rack mount servers. And we have rack mount servers too, we have really good ones. But at the same time, when you look at sustainability, and how are you going to actually get a hold of that? It's not going to be by putting 2 power supplies in every server that you put out in your data center. You can dramatically reduce that number by as much as 40% or so by using a modular system just right off the bat. But the reason people haven't wanted to do that over the last few years is we can't get the highest end configurations. We can't get the flex GPUs in a blade platform. All those things that we can't do, we can do with X-Series. So you can really go forward and deliver that type of environment without compromise on top of the new platform. It's been our fastest selling launch of a server platform ever, so we're really excited about that, and we think it's going to get even better with M-Series. And then the other piece of it that I think is important for the EMEA market is the Intersight pieces that manage all of that infrastructure. It's a SaaS-based platform, so you don't have to manage each individual chassis or each individual rack mount server. It manages racks, blades, all that stuff, but it does it from a SaaS cloud. So a lot of folks here are familiar with Cisco networking and things like Meraki, where you just plug in a server and it automatically inventories into the cloud, and you can manage your firmware from there. All those types of things is what Intersight is all about. And then being able to take that environment, whether it's big or whether it's small, or whether it's in one data center or across 50 data centers, and be able to have visibility across all those sites, see things like compliance and security updates and things that need to be fixed within the environment automatically, and then proactively support that environment. So if you're running an X-Series server that has a memory DIMM that's acting flaky, you don't have to wait till it's a problem. We'll tell you it's a problem before it's a problem, ship you a new memory DIMM so you can do what you need to do within your environment, so you can avoid any type of downtime before it actually starts. And those are the types of problems we're looking to solve with customers, because that's the simple experience that reduces complexity that we're after.
Amazing.
I think just to come back on one point, if I may, I think, what we've also found out in the marketplace, there's hundreds of thousands of servers that are either unsupported or are going to be unsupported over the next kind of 12 months. So again, going back to what keeps a CEO, a CIO, a CFO up at night is security. A lot of these systems out there are just kind of not have the latest firmware, the latest drivers, the latest updates, and keeping that environment secure. And I think with Cisco, we're going to do a massive push with this latest generation technology that we're bringing to market with Cisco, because I think there's a window of opportunity. There's 100 and some odd 15 million Xeon-based systems out there in the marketplace, so the software compatibility is there. Data centers are built on kind of Xeon. And in conjunction with Cisco, we really want to accelerate. So what Intel's committed to is that this will be our fastest ramping generation of CPU to put in all of the systems and SKUs that are out there with Cisco. And we've got to take advantage. And the reason for is to go and really replace those unsupported systems that are out there. And then the real twist in that is that these systems that are out there could be 5, 6, 7 years old. They're really what we would say were, in today's terms, inefficient servers. So that how they run the power supplies, how they run the thermals, how they run the environment, they're pretty inefficient. So again, I think you get the performance boost that Jeremy talked about, the consolidation of it, but you also get that environmental and the sustainability factor that comes with that, which we can talk a little bit more about.
Nice. Well, Adrian, I'll stay with you. What is Intel's biggest priorities here in the EU for advancing sustainability, as well as how are companies like Intel and Cisco helping customers accelerate their journey to net zero?
Okay. As you can imagine, a company the size of Intel, manufacturing is a hard thing to do. You need a big space, you build a big factory, you fill it with a lot of equipment, and then obviously you start. So actually, it takes about 3.5 years to build a factory before you start doing anything. So obviously you're creating a lot of disturbance in the environment and that type of thing. So obviously we have to kind of really, really plan very, very carefully what we actually do. I won't go into, but some of the nth of details that you go into, so methane levels, you have to monitor in an environment to find out whether you can actually put a factory there. Because obviously the methane gas, is a problem for silicon manufacture due to the specificity of what you need in terms of the air quality. So Intel has been on a long journey. We've still got a very long way to go. Our target is to get to net zero by 2040. We'd like to pull that if we can. But obviously it's a very, very complicated process. I think the other challenge we saw, certainly with COVID, is that this insatiable demand for silicon means that we have to build more factories. And as you have seen, and Jeremy alluded to a little bit on supply chain, there's not enough factories in the world, to kind of build the silicon to fill the demand that we've actually got in everyday objects, whether it's cars, planes, monitors, networking equipment, sensors, everything. The amount of screens you touch is pretty huge. So we're on a journey, specifically in Europe. Obviously, we've just expanded our site in Israel. And that's where we're actually producing the wafers for the 4th generation Xeon that will go into the Cisco product line. We've just done a double expansion, $3.5 billion in Ireland, again, in a sustainable way as we could. And what I mean by sustainable, I think it comes into 4 elements for us at Intel. So number 1 is the factory footprint. So how do we drive the factory footprint? Renewable energy. But it's a balance. If Intel starts talking too much about renewable energy, funnily enough, the prices goes up. And then the price goes up for consumers and small businesses and governments. So you've got to be really careful and balance of what you're trying to do, how much energy you're trying to take out of the grid, and how is it going to affect humans and citizens. And we all feel it in Europe. The energy prices have gone up two times, 3 times. So we've got to be cognizant of what's happening in the marketplace. So our factories, our water, about 98% of the water that we take out, we put back in cleaner than it kind of came out. So that's really important to us. And then obviously, if we look at the supply chain, we make sure that we monitor all of our suppliers. So that's kind of on the factory side. On the product side, obviously, it's all about how much carbon is in the products that then go into the products that Cisco has. So we'll work very closely with Cisco to make sure we bring that down. And as I said, with the 4th gen, we've really gone a stage further in terms of reducing that overall kind of carbon footprint that has an impact on what happens in Cisco's products. I think the most important thing, and I think what excites me about this show, and I don't know how everybody feels, but it's really nice to get back face-to-face for what has been 3 years of not face-to-face. Europe was kind of a little bit reserved of really going back full to it. It's just looking at how the technology has evolved for all the partners and customers over the last 2 or 3 years. I'm actually amazed at just how much silicon is in everything everywhere. And also this end-to-end security is kind of really important. So I think it's really not what we make, or not really what Cisco make, or what we make together, but it's what we make possible. It's what are the solutions that are out there. So like air monitoring. So, does a city turn down the speed limit on the highways because air quality is poor, so they want to reduce the quality levels? That's all done with monitoring. It's all done with data analytics. It's all done with high-performance compute. It's all done with modulation and simulation to say, well, actually, on the highway from Antwerp to Amsterdam, we're going to cut the speed limit to 70 kilometers an hour to reduce the carbon or to reduce what's in the atmosphere. Just one crazy example. For everybody at home, I don't know how many people have a smart meter now. I have a smart meter. I'm looking at it too often. But again, it's a very basic thing, but it's given me the intelligence at the edge to do something about my usage model. Very simple. So at night, we have to hit 300 watts in my house. If we're above 300 watts, I'm going, well, what's pulling the current? But again, it's just a simple screen device built on silicon over a network, back to a smart meter, and it's allowing me to make a decision about what I do. And then the fourth part really for Intel is about our employees. At the end of the day, our employees in most companies are our most important people. So obviously we had a massive intake of new employees over the last 5 or 6 years. Obviously they come from a generation very different to me. I'm wondering from sustainability, what am I going to leave behind? My children are looking at, well, what are they doing now for the future? So it's a very different perspective how you look at things from sustainability. So again, how our people travel, hybrid working, working from home, is it secure? Do you get the collaboration? Do you get the creativity, the innovation from people working at home? So again, collaborative technical environments using WebEx, for example, it brings kind of people together in the virtual world as well as the physical world. And then almost potentially, maybe we look at, how do we, tax some of our execs that fly around all over the place or that type of thing, just to get people to change the way of working. Face-to-face is great, thoroughly enjoyed the 2 or 3 days here, but I wouldn't give up the virtual world just yet.
No, I think extremely well said. And sustainability is certainly, there's a great session, by the way. If you're out there watching online, you probably will be able to click and check it out. But one of the key points I think about the market here in EMEA is they're really leading the way in the globe in terms of driving these sustainability initiatives. And I think that creates a tremendous amount of opportunity. Within Cisco IT, obviously we have a lot of data centers. We run a pretty big shop. And in San Jose, we've been able to drive 40% of the power out of our data centers in our estimates for our new refresh here with the new Intel platforms, which I think is huge. And when you factor that power reduction in what we can do on the server footprint and how that impacts the things that we're doing on the networking side and refreshing there, you come to a number almost close to 60% in terms of how much we think we can consolidate down within those facilities. And so those projects are underway. And if I'm a customer, that's a huge opportunity because there's those challenges are all important, and then there's also the dollars and cents of operating a business. And so, the cloud's great. We should use the cloud. There's a lot of really good reasons that people have accepted living in a hybrid cloud world. But we're also talking to a lot of customers who are saying, hey, I want to right size based on my application needs, the financial cost of operating in the most efficient places possible. And if you build an extremely efficient data center or disaster recovery site and hybrid cloud approach, you're going to find out that there's a huge opportunity to save money, particularly when you leverage all the new things that are available today that weren't available 3, 4, 5 years ago.
And, well, what's next on the horizon for Intel and Cisco, Adrian?
I think we kind of touched on it today. I'm really kind of very passionate, very excited that we kind of bring, the UCS X-Series, the modular framework, into the marketplace as quickly as possible. I think for all of the partners and customers out there, the refresh of those unsupported devices is absolutely critical. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to continue with innovation. We've announced that we will build a new factory in Magdeburg, which is in northeastern Germany. We've acquired the land which is public. We're still working on the plans. And we'll continue to kind of drive to make sure that there's a balanced supply chain, that we don't leave any customer or any partner short of silicon, ever again. That's not the only part. Supply chain is a really significant part. But I think, for the partners and customers, the opportunity to help Cisco and Intel or us to help them, get all these customers to refresh. Because you're only going to be as secure as the weakest link in your enterprise, your network. And especially with the remote working, people that want to get out and travel again, but they want to stay connected to work. I mean, I don't know. I know within Cisco and within us, I mean, we've had this kind of hybrid where people can work pretty well much from everywhere. As long as the tax authorities know where you are, that's probably the most important thing. But it's just made it very, very different in terms of the support infrastructure that you kind of need to look in place. I think the other thing what we found is that a lot of customers over the COVID period, they kind of had to just randomly put stuff together to get it to work. So I think there's a kind of consolidation and a refresh and a replan and looking at what they put in and how do they kind of replan for the hybrid kind of work environment as well. We'll continue our next generation Xeon technology, codenamed Granite Rapids, will be coming out in the foreseeable future, and I'm just delighted that we're going to continue the journey with Cisco. And the same, Jeremy touched on a little bit with graphics performance as well. So we launched our first fully fledged graphics product earlier last year, and again we have more news to come down the pipeline in terms of graphics capability, especially for those high intense, high performance workloads that need it. So I think the future looks incredibly bright. Looking forward to the economy picking back up a little bit. Inflation dropping, interest rates being stable, maybe geopolitical settled down a little bit, and I think it's our opportunity, and it's all of the partners and Cisco's customers' opportunity to kind of go forward. That's kind of what I would say.
Exactly right. I think the partnership's been really great before the pandemic, and I think the supply chain challenges and things have brought the two companies even closer together. So I think we're looking forward to continuing that really strong partnership as we go forward here over the next few years. As relates to the technology itself, we talked about X-Series, we mentioned the Flex GPUs. There's other areas that we can expand into out at the enterprise edge, things like UCS Mini that make it really easy to consume. What you'll see over in the world of solutions in a smaller package, if you will, that's a little lighter weight, which is really something that's been top of mind as we've talked to a lot of customers this week. And that'll, again, use the Intel 4th Gen Xeon CPUs and all those types of things. But that's really just the start when we look at being able to put that type of an environment out there with the right amount of widgets, including some of the new Flex GPUs and things that we're going to be incorporating. Overall, there is a tremendous amount of things that we are looking forward to doing together. I've only been in the role for the last 90 days in this seat, so I can tell you we've been doing a lot of strategic planning, and I can't wait to be back here at the show next year to show you some of the future innovations that we'll deliver between now and then.
Can't wait. Well, Adrian, Jeremy, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Very welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Guys, thank you.
Cheers, bud.